Chapter 9. Donovans Diplomacy. In the elevator, Donovan thought about his word jar. It has taken months, weeks, days, and hours to fill it. Deciding which word to keep was hard. Then Donovan checked the spelling and made sure he understood what each new word meant. What had his grandma been thinking of? It seemed like she wanted him to just give his words away. He loved his word collection, but he had to think of a way to handle it, now that it was growing so large. The elevator doors opened, and Donovan stepped into the lounge. He saw 3 of Grandma's neighbors sitting around the television set. They didn't seem to care much what was going on. And there was Mr. Perkson sitting by the window, looking at the raindrops hitting the window panel. Miss Millie had a magazine open on her lap, but she wasn't reading it. Mr. Crawford, the mailman, was sitting on the haystack, rubbing his feet. He looked as if he couldn't take another step. No one in the room was talking to or looking at each other, except Miss Marilou and Mr. Bilga. They were standing at the security guard's desk, arguing very loudly. No one else was paying attention to them. As Donovan walked closer, he could hear every word they said. "Miss Marilou, this lounge will be open or closed when I say so." Mr. Bilgut said in a gruff voice. "Well, I'm telling you, Bill, that's a mistake. That should be decided by the people who live here," she answered back. "I'm the guard, and I say what goes on in this lounge." Mr. Bilgut bellowed. "Well, I live here, and I say what the people who live here should set the time." Miss Marilou said it almost as loudly. Donovan looked from one to another. They both began to shout at the same time. Since neither one was listening to what the other had to say, Donovan set his word jar on the corner of the desk and dug around the jar until he found a certain word. He tugged Miss Marilou's sleeve and Mr. Bilgut's jacket. They both looked down, surprised to see Donovan standing there. "I think you two need this word," Donovan said in a stern voice. They both looked at the yellow slip at Donovan's hand. Miss Marilou giggled and Mr. Bilgut smiled. "Well, Miss Marilou, what time do you think is a good time to open?" Mr. Bilgut said, scratching his head. "Bill, I checked with a couple of people, and they suggested 10 o'clock. What do you think of that, Mr. Marilou?" Miss Marilou asked, smiling at Mr. Bilgut. Donovan let out a loud sigh of relief. He came at the right time. They both needed the word compromise. Miss Marilou and Mr. Bilgut weren't shouting anymore. They were talking to each other quietly. They were coming to agreement. That sure made Donovan feel good. His word had just been what they needed. Donovan suddenly remembered that his father had asked him to invite Grandma to dinner. He ran back to the elevator and pushed the up button.